is the end of the world as we know it. And with us to discuss all of these amazing topics tonight, of course, is the lovely and talented Penny Kelly. You can find her at pennykelly.com. Penny, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to be here. Hi to everybody out there, and I hope you're hanging on to your seats.
Indeed, and we're going to get into why that is here in just a moment.
Yeah.
Please join me in welcoming also the woo woo dude himself, the dude of woo. You can find him at woowoodude.com. Richard, welcome back. How are you, man?
Well, I thought I was doing good until she said I got to hold on to my feet. Now what the hell am I going to do? Holy sheep shit. Belt's easy. Feet, I don't know. I'm like the crouching tiger that doesn't get up.
Oh.
As you can tell, guys, we're in good form tonight. We're going to have a really good show with you guys. But please, last but not least, let me introduce my buddy, JSNIP4. You can find him at Realist News here on his Patreon account. Joe, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Pretty good. How's it going, everybody?
Doing well. Joe, do you want to sing something for us?
Come on, Joe.
Come on, Joe. Sing.
It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine.
There you go. I love it, folks. Guys, in order for you to follow along with us tonight, we're going to be decoding some of Cliff High's Webbot data and some of the private notes he's been sending Joe and I in the last couple of weeks. Of course, I've asked him permission to share that with you guys tonight. We're going to try to decode as best we can here what this all means for this month and also some of the critical dates here in July. I've created a web page here for you guys to follow along where I've cut and pasted some of those emails and some of those extracts from the report from Cliff. I asked him permission again here today. He said yes, and he sent me an additional note here for tonight. So let me give you the link to that, guys, in the live chat now. So if you want to go look for that, I'm going to refresh the page also. It's going to be in the description box of the video below here on YouTube and also on Rumble. So there's the link there. And oh my God, where do I start? We have about an hour, maybe an hour 20. I'm going to try to get to as much information as I can with you guys here tonight. I think we want to start with maybe just some of the breaking news in the last week to set the stage for everything we're going to be discussing tonight and how that seems to be pointing to the end of the world as we know it, but also an acceleration of things. And finally, perhaps this final phase of this war we find ourselves in. So, of course, if you haven't seen it, you might be living underneath a rock. But yes, Mr. Trump was found guilty on all counts. He's now a felon. If you haven't seen this decode show, I encourage you to go check it out. It's on a Rumble. Cliff High, the CIA plant. If you haven't seen that excerpt, go ahead and check it out. You'll be surprised. And finally, of course, the testimony from Mr. Fauci, very devastating to the COVID narrative, as well as the upcoming bird flu narrative. Finally, Hunter Biden also convicted on gun charges. Interestingly enough, there's criminal referrals on that as well. And on top of that, Joe, the famous Biden laptop that you and I lost channels on a couple of years ago, apparently it's real. The FBI just admitted in a court of law. And that brings up a bunch of questions with respect to election interference from these letter agencies. And so we'll get into that a little bit tonight. The reality finally is hitting the road, so to speak. There are the criminal referrals there for both Hunter and also James Biden. And finally, I think Woo Woo Dude had it a couple of months ago when he talked about the bear. We're here now. We see some rumblings of the warships in Cuba, as well as these rogue submarines off the coast of Florida. So that's to set the stage for tonight, guys. Let me start with Penny. Where are you now, Penny, on the next look-see? Do you already have some intel that we haven't spoke about last week? I am currently triple casting still on YouTube, X, and on Rumble right now, so maybe watch some of the words, but set the stage here to what you see coming up around the corner. Maybe take the next 2 minutes, Penny.
I think, well, there's not a whole lot I can say if I want to be careful, but one thing that I kind of had my eye on was the June 9th expiration of the agreement between Saudi Arabia and us, I guess. Saudi Arabia, it did not renew their agreement to only buy or sell oil in dollars. And that pretty much means the end of the dollar as reserve currency. And that's a big deal. That happened June 9th. That's 4 days ago. I think it's not sinking in to people at this point. One of the things I've seen as I look across the coming weeks is bank after bank after bank after bank is going down, and there's no retrieving them. And so that is really, really not a good thing. And then I think I'll just mention that I did I call it a Zoom stream that I do for my Patreon people last Friday. And we did a zigzag journey. And that zigzag we looked at, in that zigzag, we looked at 3 dates. This is a telepathic exercise. And you basically, you don't know what dates I've written down. You're just given instructions to go look at that date. What do you see? Report what you see in this particular category. The first category was November 11th, and that was the what's happening in your country, because there's people from different countries on the
Right.
Zoom stream. And the second date was August 31st, what's happening with your government, specifically your government. And then January 10th, 2025, what's going on with the people? How's their health? How's their mindset? What condition are they in? And when we ended up looking at those, and there were probably around 70 people that were in this exercise, everybody saw the same thing. August 31st, there was no government. There was, the remains, a few remains here and there. November 11th, people were sort of in shock, and people started mentioning that there were a lot fewer people, and that everybody was dazed, and people were like talking like, can you believe? And then on January 10th, there was this sort of I think the report that captured it all was that everybody knows that we are in the fourth stage of acceptance of grief. And there were a lot fewer people. Again, that kept coming up. And so I went looking at that to see why are there fewer people? Why is that noticeably fewer people? And it looked like it had something to do with the unavailability of pharmaceuticals, and people who depended on that had left, and that was really upsetting. So those are just some of the things that were in the look-see. There's a bunch of other things. So
Well, thank you for that. That sets the stage there. I took note of the dates, and folks, also as you watch the show with us here tonight, I encourage you to pay attention and to maybe take some notes as we go along here, because we are going to be giving away some prizes at the end of the show, including this beautiful summer edition pyramid here from Carla Ascension Organites. We'll be giving away some Haida inspired jewelry and some shungite pendants as well. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be at the end of this show. Joe, you're next on the screen here. You've been doing a couple of videos here in the last couple of days, again, suggesting that this movie is coming into the epic climax here, probably sooner than later. There's a lot of things that are starting to echo the things that you, Richard, and Penny have been saying for a number of years. They seem to be on the forefront, including your prediction here with the Biden and whether or not he'd be around to serve his sentence. I just saw that video yesterday on your YouTube channel. Maybe to take the next 2 minutes also to set the stage here for how you think. Okay, you're getting a warning there. So don't go too far on that one. But set the stage, Joe. What do you see happening now? What are the things that hit you in the last week? I just shared some of those news items that suggest that we're getting close here to the end of the world as we know it. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, you got as soon as this thing with Saudi Arabia, it just reminded me immediately, Lindsey Williams. He told us so long ago about this day.
Mm-hmm.
And I seem to remember him saying, after that happens, when they don't use the US dollar for their oil trade anymore, that a series of things would happen, in particular, the Middle Eastern nations and or anyone else holding a lot of our US debt, treasury bills, are going to wake up one day when we have to either devalue or just whatever. They're going to be effing pissed. And they're going to be like, we're not trading. We're not doing anything. We're not having anything to do with the US like effective immediately. So when you talk about pharmaceuticals not being available and things like that, it reminds me too, like some of the stuff we'll probably get into with Cliff High, talking about like if you need anything, whether that's parts, spare parts, electronic stuff, like anything you think you might want or need, you better start buying it and have it now, because the supply chain is going to have some major problems.
I know.
So I think, again, this is not just a one-off event thing. Like this is a big deal with this thing with Saudi Arabia not taking our dollar. But again, Lindsay knew this decades ago and was telling us about it. And now he's dead. He's no longer with us. But I'll never forget him talking about it. So now we have to enter that stage. And if that happens, I keep saying, okay, well, what's the stock market going to do? What's the housing market going to do? What's all the markets going to do when that kind of thing hits the fan? And we got the banking problem. There's like $500 billion in unrealized losses, I think, with the U.S. banking system. I mean, again, my dream with the balloons and the dollars, and they disappear and all this. You can only have $50 a day. All this shit's coming. I'm convinced. So if that's the case, again, I'm looking at markets, any market. How are they going to be like skyrocketing during that period? That's the perfect period for the Russian bear to stand up too, where you have all this shit happening. It's the perfect stew of events, because then you could just have the talking heads on, so Russia did it. Russia. No, the banking systems had this problem for, forever, but they could just, blame it on some nonsense. Over here, Russia did that thing, or whatever. But anyways, I think we're going to get into quite a bit of this tonight.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Joe, for that. And let me bring this up also for the context of the audience. Joe and I have talked about this many times before. This was the remote viewing of the death of the dollar here from the folks at Crypto Viewing. I did reach out to Dick Allgaier the last couple of days, asking him if he could come on, and he was in the middle of a blind session. So he said, give me a couple of days here before I can share what's coming up for the month of July. They usually do these look-sees 1 month forward. So maybe in the next couple of days here, I'll be able to have Dick come on the show, and we're going to look at this again, as well as what they're seeing now. And oddly enough, last month, they were predicting these submarines and ships and perhaps missiles flying here for the month of June. And that's the imagery we're getting right now in the mainstream news. So they were dead on target again with that. So guys, you can go check them out at futureforecastinggroup.com. Now, Richard, in the last number of months, you've had this vision of the bear here standing up and saying this far no further. Well, the bear's in their backyard now, and essentially on two fronts. On the economic front, just this week, he's halted. I'm talking about Putin now in Russia. They've halted the trading of the U.S. and euro at the Russian stock exchange, and now they're in their backyard. They're in Florida. They're in Cuba right now. And they're basically saying to NATO, hey, yeah, you want to play in my backyard? I'm tired of this. I'm going to go in your backyard too. So we seem to be escalating towards this moment that your guides were suggesting we're coming in this year. Richard, so take the next 2 minutes too and set that up for the audience members to understand here how that message from Spirit seems to be translating into reality here in the next couple of days and weeks.
It's manifesting, is it? If we'll just back the ship up a little. If you go back to when I was on your show with actually Penny and Joe, that was in January of 22, right before the war. And when I just got out of the hospital, I had all those visions. And I want to go to the third episode in that where Putin was coming into the ring. All right. In the previous rounds, he was playing chess. He was doing things like that. Then he started to hit a little harder. But in the third round, he came out and he was serious. And he punched him in the face as hard as he could. And he dented his face, and his face was a toaster. Right? Now think about that. And then dollar bills started flying out like an ATM, but nobody would pick them up. All right. The Russian bear, when that had stood up, it had an F-16 in its mouth and 3 separate missiles. Now we keep, when you get visuals from Spirit, you've got to really put an effort into understanding what they're trying to show you. All right. So the Russian bear right now is coming out of the cave from a long winter. It's stretching it. Mm-hmm. Now, everybody thinks, oh, my God, they're in that backyard. Listen, they've been on that backyard and playing for quite a few years. They purposely came up to let everybody see, say, okay. But when we go back to that third round, right before the war started, out of the blue, as Spirit was talking to me, I said, oh my God, he's going to go after NATO. Right? I said that.
Mhm.
All right. Well, what the hell is happening?
Mhm.
All right. So, every part has happened. So I believe those strikes are going to happen. And the 3 missiles represent, I believe, 3 separate countries. That's what I really believe. And
Hold on. Before you go to word on some of those bad words, Richard, let me just bring the link down.
shit! What's
You're
still on YouTube? What the hell is wrong with you? Get us off YouTube.
Okay, guys, if you're watching us on YouTube now, yes, please come and join us on the Rumble feed. There's a link in the live chat there, and let me remove and say good night to you there. And please come and join us either on X or on Rumble, of course. All right, so remove that one.